This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Hello and welcome to episode 88 of the 1001 Movies podcast, based on the book 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. This week I'll be talking about Nine Queens, the 2000 Argentinian crime drama written and directed by Fabian Bielinsky. Before I proceed talking about the film, those of you following along closely may have noticed that this episode's subject, Nine Queens, isn't in the latest edition of 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. Each year, as new movies come out, the editors of the volume add new films while discarding others to meet the 1001 quota promised in the title. Now, most of the time, the discarded titles are among the most recent. So a film like Nine Queens will disappear from the book, while films like the snooze-worthy slugfest that is, for instance, Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors, will remain. This means that the 2015 edition of the book has, for instance, 4 titles from 2011, while also having 16 titles from 1975. Now, while I appreciate that the past has a number of forgotten gems that I'd love to see, just using a single list from a later edition of the book implies that newer movies aren't as good as older ones. Although personally, I think it's just easier for the editors to snip a few titles from the end of the book rather than go through the entire list and cherry pick older films to take out. Back in episode 52, I announced that I would be sticking to the 2015 edition of the book. Since then, my random generator has only picked 2 films made after the year 2000, Cave of Forgotten Dreams and No Man's Land. This means that there are 19 years of filmmaking that are seriously underrepresented both in the 2015 book and on this podcast, so I recently decided to branch out and include all films ever mentioned in any edition of the book, meaning that the list has now expanded to just over 1,100 movies. The year 2000's Nine Queens, which was listed in the book's original 2003 edition, is among those added to the list, and it's better for it. Now, on to the film. Buenos Aries resident Fabian Bielinsky opted out of a career as a psychologist to go to film school, and he graduated in 1983. He worked sporadically during the 80s and 90s, mostly as a first assistant director on a handful of projects, which was probably just enough to keep food on the table. But he was persistent up until 2000, when he wrote and directed his first feature film, Nine Queens. I won't tell you what the film is about, but to be fair, just in case you want to see this movie, and you should, I'm going to be as cryptic as possible about the plot. It opens in a convenience store, where a con artist named Marcos, played by Ricardo Darin, observes a young man named Juan, played by Gaston Pauls, trying unsuccessfully to swindle money from the cashier. Marcos saves Juan from being arrested by pretending to be a cop and hauling him outside, where he proceeds to talk Juan into being his new partner as a confidence man, as his last partner disappeared a few weeks ago. Juan reluctantly agrees, and within the same day, the two of them discover an opportunity to sell a set of forged stamps, the Nine Queens in the title, to a millionaire. What happens next, I shall not tell you, but it seems that fate is conspiring to work against the men as they try to pull off the grift of a lifetime. Nine Queens was a smashing success in Argentina, and it was nominated for the Silver Condor Awards. That's the country's equivalent of the Academy Awards, winning 7 of them, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor for Ricardo Darin. It also managed to snag a number of awards on the international film circuit, and when it was released in the United States in 2002, it again was praised by critics, but afterwards it sadly fell off the country's radar. I'm going to assume that it's widely available in Argentina, but here in the United States, it's currently not streaming anywhere, although you can find a cheap copy on DVD. However, as the United States is wont to do with anything good from another country, it remade the film as Criminal in 2004, starring John C. Reilly in the Marcos role and Diego Luna as Juan, although the names were changed to Richard and Rodrigo. I've never heard of it before doing research for this, but my curiosity has piqued since John C. Reilly's in it. Nine Queens' lack of notoriety probably stems from the fate of Fabian Bielinsky, who made one more movie, 2005's The Aura, before dying of a heart attack while casting a film in 2006 at the young age of 47. Actor Ricardo Darin already was a prominent actor, but his co-star Gaston Pauls, who at the time was known primarily for his roles in soap operas, gained instant fame from the film. What did I think of Nine Queens? Well, David Mamet is usually credited as the master of the heist or con subgenre with films like Heist, House of Games, and The Spanish Prisoner. Bielinsky really gave him a run for his money. Granted, it's been years since I've seen any of those Mamet films, but Nine Queens is polished, superbly paced, and expertly plotted. About halfway through, we come upon the realization that things may not be as they seem, and in a way that I haven't seen since The Usual Suspects, Bielinsky grabs us by the shoulders at this moment in the viewer's mind and turns the script in on itself, assuring us that even though we know we're watching a con film, we can trust Marcos as he leads us from one suspicious encounter to the next. This is the only heist film that eventually makes the viewer culpable along with the con artists. Seemingly every time they step closer to pulling off their game, something happens to take them a step backwards, as if the main characters and fate are involved in some sort of karmic chess game. At one point, when he almost can't take it anymore, Marcus has a moment alone in a hotel lobby, and within about 8 seconds, Ricardo Darin manages to emote every unfortunate series of events leading up to then with his expression alone. It's difficult to praise a film without doing a post-mortem of it, and since I don't want to spoil the plot, I need to tread carefully here, perhaps making this a shorter episode. If I had to be critical about something, it would be Leticia Bradice as Marcus's hotel manager's sister, Valeria. Her involvement seems at first trivial, but she's not given much to make us believe what she does in the film's final chapter. Valeria seems conservative, professional, and unflaggingly uptight, which proves a perfect foil for her brother's activities. What she does for him later, however, involving their grandfather's estate and a sexual act, which I cannot go into for the sake of spoilers, seems a little out of character. I can't let this minor quibble stop me from giving this film a stellar review, and this is indeed one of those rare gems I uncover whilst doing this podcast that I can hardly recommend and will never forget. Had Bielinsky lived to make more movies, there's a chance, probably a very good chance, that he would become Argentina's greatest filmmaker. Unfortunately, fate had other plans for him. That's all I had to say about Nine Queens. Tune in next week when I conclude this season by talking about 1931's Les Millions, directed by René Clair. In the meantime, feel free to email me with any comments or questions at 1001moviespodcast@gmail.com or follow me on Twitter at 1001moviespc. Until next time, happy viewing.